Have you ever wondered if there's a better way to educate your kids than through the traditional school system?
One that nurtures curiosity, independence, and a love for learning. For me and my siblings, that journey began when my parents decided to sell everything we owned to move into an RV to travel the world full time, and in the process began our unschooling journey.
In this video, we'll be sharing with you why we made this unconventional choice, why it works for us, and how it has raised human beings that are not only very intelligent, have a huge love for learning, but also kind, compassionate, self-driven, self-motivated, and extremely healthy.
So there's a famous study that was done in 1968 for NASA on creativity and intelligence, and this study is often referred to as the Genius Children Study. This study investigated how creativity develops over time and the environmental factors that influence it. In this study, the researchers found that 98% of 5-year-old kids scored as genius in creativity levels. By the age of 10, only 30% of those kids are still considered genius level, and by the age of 15, only 12%. By the time these kids were adults, that percentage was only 2. They found that curiosity was critical to the ability to generate innovative ideas. Autonomy or freedom to explore was linked to sustained creativity, and diverse hands-on learning experiences is what nurtured creativity. And so, this study done by George Land and his team really ended up critiquing that traditional schooling systems were linked to the decline of genius and the decline of creativity with age. People worry so much that if they don't send their kids to school, that if they consider unschooling, that their kids will turn out to be unintelligent and lazy. But it is clear that the school system is not only equal to an at-home education, but it's actually a disservice compared to the innate intelligence of children when you put them in an unschooling environment.
To be honest, it's not like I woke up one day and said, that's it, I'm going to be an unschooler, no more homeschooling for me. It was way more intuitive than that. It was a process of starting to crave more field trips, more time doing outdoor things like playing at the beach, going surfing. We really were more exploring what made us happy than so much that I was rejecting traditional curriculum.
So I didn't really start unschooling until I was like 14 years old. Before that though, me and my older brother were pretty traditionally homeschooled. We sat down, we had to do all of our subjects. We did our subjects in front of the chalkboard every day. We were always 2 grades ahead of everyone else.
As we started dipping our toes in more adventure sports and more travel, naturally, my kids started learning so much through real life. We'd be at the beach and they'd learn about starfish, or they'd play in the tide pools. We'd be on a road trip and be at national parks where they're learning about all the different types of trees. It was naturally just evolved to that because our real life, our day-to-day life was providing all these opportunities for them to learn.
If you look at the grand scheme of how me and my brother were homeschooled to unschooled, it was more of a slippery slope than a conscious choice, because basically when I was 14, we decided to move into the RV, and I feel like the first summer it was accidentally unschooling. I remember that first summer when we moved into the RV, I was 14, so technically would be going into my freshman year of high school that fall. And that first summer, all I remember is I was always taking photos and videos, and I made this little video mini documentary project that first summer. And that was kind of the epitome of unschooling, but it was not assigned. I just wanted to make this creative project. I was obsessed with photography at the time. So then going into the fall, I think that was when I had my last official assignment that would actually kind of become this turning point, I think, for us to basically become more officially unschooled. And that assignment was, it was, like I said, I was my freshman year, and so my mom assigned me this geography assignment where I was supposed to plan a gap year. And so basically I spent that whole semester creating a presentation and researching what a gap year would be. And for those of you who are totally unfamiliar with what a gap year is the idea of a one-year trip that you take when you graduate high school before you go to college. I think that's the traditional stereotypical gap year, but I planned a gap year basically being a year of travel. So I researched all of the best travel destinations in the world, and prior to that, I don't really think we ever considered world destinations. Like, why would anyone ever want to travel outside the US? What lies outside the US? And so I put together this presentation. I researched Europe a ton. I remember looking into Southeast Asia and like the islands like Bali, all of these places, and I presented to my mom, and I remember my mom being like, oh my gosh, I did not know that the world was that beautiful or that amazing, especially when we were looking at the Europe stuff. And then basically from that gap year, my mom decided to book one-way tickets for us to go to Europe the next year. And so we bought one-way tickets and flew to Europe in 2016. And we spent 6 months traveling around Europe with basically just backpacks on our back. We had a car rental here and then eventually got an RV, but we were just roaming around in an RV for 6 months. And that was the point in which we never went back to traditional schooling.
That was when we fully committed really to unschooling, because we were traveling through all these beautiful cities, learning about history. Like, we would walk through all these castles and you could smell the history. You'd talk to people who had lived in these towns for generations. It was profound how much travel made it easier for me to embrace unschooling. I think if we hadn't traveled, it might have been a little bit harder for me to understand, how do I fill my day if there's not new experiences around us.
My experience with unschooling growing up was basically around 10 or 11. My mom gave up on trying to educate me because I was ridiculously unfocused. And I think I turned out okay. After all, I will be hitting my first $2,000 this month off of YouTube and my business I started probably 3 years ago. So I ended up just finding my own self-driven learning, and it seemed to work out fine for me.
Instead of just waking up and wasting away my day, I have all this time, so I plan what I want to do. So I go help someone with the vlogs, then we're gonna go skiing, then I'm probably gonna go play an instrument, then I'm probably gonna write my book. I have all these time to do the things I want to do.
I have been traveling in an RV since I was 3 years old, so unschooling has been my entire life. Never picked up a school book, and I learned through life experience until I got interested in something and started to learn. So I got interested in sewing a few years ago, so just learn. I never really used patterns, so I learned through problem solving of, if I cut this is going to be an issue. That helped a lot with problem solving to figure out an issue. I've gotten into planes a lot, so I've been learning through YouTube and a lot of sources on math and aeronautics and all that stuff.
I would describe unschooling as probably the art of unlearning everything you thought education needed to be and truly learning education through life. At least that's what it's been for me. Like I said, my mom gave up on trying to educate me, but I remember she basically gave me one unspoken rule, which is I don't care what you do as long as you're passionate about something and learning something. And so it ends up becoming a form of self-driven learning. I was very into art as a kid, and so I probably spent 90% of my time either drawing or playing instruments, and somehow through a rabbit hole of getting into psychology and astrology, that turned into my own business. So unschooling really is the ability to give kids space to see that education and learning is a natural part of the human experience rather than something that has to be forced upon someone.
Look, unschooling is not about not educating your kids. If anything, you're providing them more education. Think of it as a blank canvas. You're providing a medium, an environment that allows them to be creative, whereas the school system tends to be like a color by number, and you're having to follow directions or fit into other people's boxes. Instead, with unschooling, I really like to call it life schooling or interest-based education. I'm providing a space, I'm providing resources, I'm providing my time, I'm providing motivation, encouragement, support for them to take the things that they're really interested in and deep dive into it. And most importantly, we have this opportunity now with technology to take the things we learn and then regurgitate it or deliver it. And I really think that's something that's missing. In the school system, a lot of times we're just checking for memorization and we're writing, turning in papers, taking tests. But instead, naturally through an unschooling environment, the kids often get to speak or create videos, podcasts, movies, presentations about the things that are really exciting for them to learn about. So it helps them also to not only learn more, but develop confidence and own their voice, which I think in today's day and age is really important.
Most people think unschooling is just sitting at your home, looking at YouTube, doing nothing all day long. That's not what it is. Unschooling is having nothing to do, so you choose to learn things yourself, passionately, what you want to learn. I'm not expected to learn to have perfect grammar or write 5-page essays, but I am expected to help with writing blogs, helping writing scripts for YouTube, and helping in such ways like that.
Let me paint a picture for you what our evolution from homeschooling to road schooling to unschooling looked like. So I started homeschooling my oldest Daniel when he was in preschool. He was 3 years old. Preschool was awful for him. So I made the decision at that moment when I'd pick him up from preschool and he was crying that I'm going to homeschool my children. Well, I was overly eager, and by the time he was 5 and Gabby was only 3, I had little flip desks for them. We had a 10-foot chalkboard up on the wall in our dining room. You know, we'd have syllabuses and schedules, and I made sure that they stayed with that schedule, that they'd go through each lesson of actual curriculum. It was great. It was fabulous. Homeschooling is wonderful. Okay, it created a great connection between me and my children. They felt supported. They didn't feel stressed. They didn't have to worry about keeping up with other kids or being too far ahead of other kids. It was wonderful. But unschooling looks a little bit different. Unschooling is not necessarily using the traditional curriculum, reading, writing, grammar, science, history, math. Well, we can do that. In fact, today even, my youngest daughter, Tatiana, asked to do math. I kind of complained, do we really have to do math? She wants to do math, so I show up and we do math together. But half of our days are spent just skiing or mountain biking. They're always reading books that are interesting to them. My kids have always had a passion for reading, and well, early on, I might have encouraged it or said, hey, you know, you're not allowed to watch video games, you can't play video games, you can't watch TV. You have to find something that interests you, that you're curious about. So they naturally would start picking up books, and because it wasn't forced, they loved it. They would spend a lot of time writing their own stories, their own fiction and nonfiction books. They'd spend a lot of time going deep dive. For example, Isabel really was into personality typing. Then she grew a passion for astrology. Now she has a successful YouTube channel where she teaches people astrology. So there's so much more opportunities for letting your kids' talents, passions, interests lead the way. But it's very, very, very important with unschooling that you're still trying to help them develop themselves, learning how to speak, learning how to write, learning how to intake information. It's just not in the same traditional way as the school system does.
The difference between unschooling and schooling that I have found is that most kids are always forced to play an instrument, to do their homework, to do something they don't even like, when my parents usually just left me alone and let me figure out what I really wanted to do. And then they knew once I figured out what I wanted to do, I would spend all my day working on whatever I was interested in. I probably spend about 3 hours a day researching anything I'm interested in, and then practicing anything. Like I play flute, I do some math, I do that, and anything else that work on.
I'm misconception about unschooling is that you are not doing any school. I am doing school. School just means education. I am definitely learning something. Every day I am learning something new, whether it is how to write a good blog, how to talk slower on video, how to learn a trick on skis, or how to learn an instrument. I'm always learning something. If not, I'm learning more education because I have time to actually explore it.
The misconceptions about being homeschooled is that we're weird and awkward, which we actually find is the other way around. That a lot of people who go to school don't have like the capability to talk and make conversations.
If you're unschooled, you're gonna become lazy. That like this idea that if kids have time, they're just gonna choose to do nothing. But I think that's totally false, because our inherent soul, our inherent inner child is very curious and very driven.
I have never seen a child who has started unschooling and become lazy, because what ends up happening is, in a way, curiosity and the desire to learn is our natural instinct. And when kids are given, including myself, the space and the relief of pressure to accomplish things or do certain things, curiosity naturally starts to develop because it's our natural way of being. And so self-driven learning is the natural byproduct.
Now, the big thing that I think a lot of people do run into is because it's like, well, how do people stay motivated if you don't give them school assignments, if you don't give them a test, if you don't give them some extrinsic validation? How do you motivate someone? Well, now you're getting into the deeper aspect of what you are trying to cultivate with unschooling, which is that you are trying to teach a child how to have intrinsic values, which should be, again, inherent in the soul. But if you are going into unschooling, not from like 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, and you're starting from maybe like a 9-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, you're gonna have to focus on this a lot, because the only way this works is if you give them space and nurture intrinsic values. This is key, this is huge. I started unschooling when I was 14 years old, so I had to learn this the hard way, because I went from a life where I was still, even though I was homeschooled, I was still in a system of extrinsic value. I do my homework or I do my school and I get the validation of knowing I got an A on my test. I go to gymnastics and I go to soccer, and I lived in that like rat race world where I was in all the competitive sports. And if I won, if I was the best, I got the validation of getting the trophy, of my coach's approval. I lived in that world. And then moving into an RV, traveling the world, I was just pulled away from all of the things that I gained my sense of self-value from, and I did not know what to do. But I sat in the wilderness, I sat in silence long enough, I sat in my curiosity long enough to realize that there's something else within you that actually makes you feel valuable. You can choose the things that make you feel valuable simply by changing your values. How to create that without having a parent that models that is going to be very hard. So if you're listening to this as a parent, that's a question to ask yourself. What things make you feel valuable? Are you still caught up in extrinsic validation? Because if you are, then how are you going to teach your child to be motivated from within, from an inner cause, not from an external affirmation, praise, award, a validation, or affirmation? You can go that way, but you are going to stay in that system of not really the unschool system. You're going to stay in the system of, the hustle, the grind, never feeling like you're enough. Or you can choose to model intrinsic motivation yourself by being internally driven by values and model that for your kid. And you're going to teach them how to be motivated for the rest of their life, because they'll have an inner source of power that's going to lead them and propel them forward instead of chasing something that you'll never be able to attain.
There are 3 R's, though, that I really stand by, even if it's unschooling, road schooling, homeschooling. Okay, these 3 R's are rhetoric, research, and resourcefulness. Now, these are the things that I find are the most important aspects for your kids to develop as they are growing up and becoming adults in this technologically advanced age, right? We have ChatGPT now. It's so important for your kids to be able to research, to find information. Okay, it's not, memorization is not that important. It's much more important for your children to develop the ability to go and look up information and find it. But that's not enough. In fact, I see a lot of people, adults especially, who are great at looking up on Google or ChatGPT and finding data. Applying the data is so important. That's where resourcefulness comes in. It's very important for them to take that information and do something with it. Or when they find themselves like in a bind or having a struggle that they can't just ask ChatGPT for a simple question to. Resourcefulness also is a matter of trying to pull together different ideas, coming up with new types of questions to ask AI, things like that. So resourcefulness is really important, and it takes you stepping outside your comfort zone. And for us, resourcefulness naturally came through travel because we'd get lost in cities, we'd have flat tires, there'd be lost luggage, plane delays. Like, travel is a naturally easy way to develop this, but adventure is even a better way to develop this, because if you're doing adventure sports, there's a lot of times where you have to do risk assessment. You have to get the beta and then implement the beta for some of these hikes and climbs. And the first one I mentioned is rhetoric. So rhetoric is kind of the icing on the cake. It's great if you have a shy child and they can research and they're resourceful, but it's really hard to succeed in today's world if you can't connect with people, if you can't speak on camera, if you can't speak in person in an interview. I have one child, my oldest, he doesn't really want to be an entrepreneur. He doesn't want to do this type of work with YouTube and Instagram, but because he has such amazing people skills, because he can talk in person to managers, to customers, he's great at sales. So finding your child's niche, they don't have to be great at everything. They don't have to be great at writing and reading and talking on film. You just need to find the one that's great for them so that their ideas can be expressed. Because the best part about unschooling is you're allowing ideas to blossom. The whole problem with the school system is children's ideas, thoughts, creativity gets suppressed. With unschooling, you get to bring it to the surface and then really let it shine.
There is a rapidly escalating importance for creativity, problem solving, emotional awareness, and the ability to connect with other people. I think with unschooling, all of those skills were cultivated, but I think it's totally overlooked how crucial those skills are going to be in the next 10 years. You're already seeing it now. At the time of publishing this video, we are already in a world where we can pull up data and information and knowledge instantly with ChatGPT. Before it was like we could Google things and we could come up with them, and through our research abilities, we could come up with those answers, in like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour. We don't even have to research now. So even though research is important, what's more important, I think, is learning to ask the right questions. But the problem is, you think about the traditional school system, it's the opposite. You're taught to recite information, not ask the right questions. So the skills that are most important is the ability to know what questions to ask. On top of that, I think connection is really important, because if you think about where we're at with AI, if you think about where we're at with ChatGPT and AI, what the public sees is always at least 10 years behind what is actually happening behind the curtain of the most advanced technologies. And so if we, the public, are experiencing what we can do with AI now for everyone, it's only inevitable for a worse advancement or better advancement of AI, to the point where a lot of the jobs that we know of today are no longer relevant, are no longer required. And so you have to ask yourself the questions of what skills can AI not do. AI cannot replace the emotional connection that you feel with another person. So how do you create that emotional connection? How do you connect with another person? You do it through your speech. You do it through your ability to actually hear someone. You do it through the ability to ask the right questions. So how can the traditional school system cultivate those skills when inherently it is already making you, wiring you into a system of reciting information? I think that's why unschooling is so important right now.
I think unschooling really gave me the skill set that I needed when it came to handling my own personal business, because I've been working on my business for 3 years and I love it. But I think if I had gone to or through the school system, I would have quit 3 years ago, because being able to be an online entrepreneur requires a lot of resiliency and the ability to adapt. And I think naturally the school system tells us that we have to be able to just accomplish tasks and be valued for the tasks. Whereas unschooling gave me the skill set to say, maybe it's not what you're doing is wrong, it's how you're doing it. And so with my own business, unschooling gave me the ability to go, I really want to do this. I know I'm just doing it wrong, and I need to just watch and observe and see how I can adapt to make this work for me and be able to bring something of service to the world.
The things about unschooling that has helped me in life is through mindfulness and self-awareness. I have always been very angry. Since I was a baby, I would scream, I'd be so angry, and through mindfulness, it has helped me regulate that and really think through my emotions, like, why am I angry right now? That is a really big life skill that has helped me a lot.
There's a ton of problem solving when you do unschooling. For instance, if I'm going to learn an instrument, I have to problem solve how to learn that instrument. If I'm making breakfast, sometimes I got to problem solve what breakfast I'm going to make with the limited resources we have.
To spend so much time on my passions has really helped me not really care what people think compared to a lot of people my age, when they're just, oh, what will this person think of me, or what did they see me say that, or like, what did this? I just don't really care because I get to just do what I love.
Okay, I want to give you a couple examples of the benefits that I have seen from doing this self-directed education or unschooling. Okay, so one time we were going to rock climb the Grand Tetons. Now, because we have so much more time in our days, we get to spend a lot of time doing adventure sports, like a lot of time, hiking, mountain biking, surfing, rock climbing. In the process of doing that, from the time Gabby was 14 until she's 24 now, she developed this huge passion for rock climbing and took it from sport climbing to trad climbing to now mountaineering. So she took Isabel and I up the Grand Teton. Really exciting. We had to get up at 2 a.m. Just that alone, to have the passion and excitement to get up early and go conquer something that you know is going to be really hard. It's a 19-hour day. As we pull into the parking lot, we hear a whoosh. Sure enough, we had run over a nail and one of our tires was flat. But we had to get up the mountain, up to the top of the Grand before we worried about thunderstorms. So we just ignored it. We summited the Grand, made it back by like 9 at night, 19 hours, and then had to deal with a flat tire. I was amazed at how quickly Isabel, I had actually never changed a tire. They don't teach you that in school. I was amazed at how fast she figured it out, found the jack, got it all lifted up, took off the lug nuts. By then, somebody came over and kind of helped finish it off. Is the point of unschooling to be able to change a tire? No. But that was just one example. We've had many times like that where it is amazing how quickly they can solve a problem and figure it out. Another one is because of homeschooling, and we love health and eating healthy and working out, Jiraiya has become an amazing chef. Like, if he had to have a fallback, he could go and probably open a restaurant or work as a cook somewhere, because he makes us these extravagant meals every single day. I think 16-year-old boy who loves to cook healthy food for his family, I think that's pretty special. But again, changing tires, being able to cook, maybe those aren't as important. Tatiana loves to sew, and she's a little bit stubborn, so she didn't want to learn how to sew with patterns. So she takes white paper, like printer paper, and creates prototypes, and then cuts it all out and tapes them together and makes her own patterns. Well, just this last Halloween, from scratch, from just 10 yards of orange fabric and 10 yards of blue fabric, she made the Dumb and Dumber costume for her and her brother. The whole thing, it was amazing. People could not believe that she made it from scratch. So again, maybe that's not the goal for you, but finding something that your kids are going to love doing, that's gonna, think about the confidence to be able to change a tire, to be able to cook yourself food, to be able to sew your own clothes. Confidence is important today. That confidence will carry over to whatever career, job, or relationship they choose to have in the future. when I coach other moms about pulling their kids out of school and choosing homeschooling versus unschooling is that they really worry that their kid is not going to be able to get into college. So this misconception that you need to have completed algebra, geometry, pre-algebra, all of those things in order to get into college is not true. In fact, when I first started transitioning from homeschooling to unschooling, I remember sitting down with a friend who happens to be on the board that decides who gets accepted to an Ivy League college. And he said, don't worry, just make sure that they put on their cover letter exactly what you're doing. And at the time, he knew that we were traveling 6 months through Europe. Now, does that mean if you don't travel 6 months through Europe, that you're not going to have something amazing to put on that cover letter? No. But there is no way to benefit from unschooling without creating something magical with your kid. Okay? Because the problem is, if you think about unschooling in terms of ignoring your child throughout the day or letting them do their own thing and they sit in their room and maybe they draw. Maybe they are into music and playing instruments. That's great, but it's your job as an unschooling parent to nurture that into something in the world, to help propel them to use that talent, that passion, and bring it into the world. So whatever that thing is, that can be on the cover of their college application. That's one example. Now, many children can just score high on an SAT if college is what you're concerned about, if college is the worry. My kid won't get into college if I unschool. You can do none of the subjects and just focus on getting a good SAT scores. You'd be amazed if you're new to homeschooling or unschooling that your child can learn what they would learn in an entire week of school in about 2 hours, 2 hours a week. So we're cutting down a lot of time and making it much more efficient when we are choosing to learn. Now, here's the next misconception, that college is the answer. I'm going to tell you firsthand, I know lots of kids that are the same age as my adult children who have gone the college route and still struggle to find jobs in the workforce. The workforce is changing. Getting a college degree does not guarantee that they're going to find a job. And let's go one step deeper, because this is what actually propelled me to choose homeschooling, or motivated me and made it so I didn't really worry when I chose unschooling, is I see so many adults who have gone the school path, maybe the Ivy League college path, the highly successful job path, and they're unhealthy or unhappy. That at the root of it, the goal with unschooling is to develop a human being that is happy, that knows what happiness is, that values happiness, that knows what health is, that values health. That's the point of living. The whole point of why we're here is to enjoy our lives. So we really have to deconstruct many misconceptions when it comes around unschooling, in that being able to look at your child as this, like I said, beautiful blank canvas, and think, how can I make a beautiful portrait to hang up on the wall? The last thing I want to touch on with misconceptions is the idea that we need college in the first place. Okay, I kind of explained how, sure, there's ways around it. You can get in college. Is college the answer? A lot of people go to college, don't even get the jobs they want, or they get the jobs that they think they want and they're not happy anyways. So the last one is rethink safety and security. Rethink, like, what do I want my child's life to look like, feel like, expression of self to be when they're 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. What is a good life? And if you can sit down with your kid from a very young age, I probably was asking my kids this at 7, 8, 9, what is a good life to you? What makes you happy? What do you want to pursue? It helps them become self-responsible to their own happiness. So there's lots of different careers out there. In fact, most of the jobs that your kids will have don't even exist yet. We're going to be able to create so many of our own jobs in the future that if you're worried about college, I would encourage you to try to get that thought out of your mind and just think of, how do I develop this human being into their maximum potential, their highest self, and really nurture their soul instead of worrying about math, reading, writing, science, history.
think the one piece of advice I would give to anyone who's considering unschooling their kids is to not worry too much in the beginning phase about how they're gonna monetize whatever it is they're interested in. More so emphasizing the idea of them building a skill set. So for example, for me, I was heavily into art and drawing. Did I ever monetize art and drawing? Not really, but I was taught and given the space to, or encouraged to promote that skill set. So whatever it is your kid is interested in, encourage them to build that skill set as far as they want to, or as far as they can. Let them and encourage them to build a skill set greater, because that is a skill that is going to transfer over into other things they may become interested in later on for a career or for finances. Teaching them to build a skill set is going to be the most important thing. So really just giving encouragement in the end is the best thing you can do.
Biggest advice for families and people who are going to unschool is food. Your diet changes everything. I know people who will eat sugar just all day, who will eat stuff from like gas stations. You can't eat sugar all day. So like for breakfast, we'll eat ground beef, a pound of ground beef for breakfast, and you're gonna be set for the whole day. You're not gonna be angry. You have to feed your body good food, because what goes in your body shows what your emotions will be like.
Look, in conclusion, if I could give you just one piece of advice, no curriculum, not even the maximizing their passions, talents, none of that matters as much as your presence in your child's life. If you are actually there with them day in and day out, listening to them, not on your phone, not like getting the house tidy constantly, not checking through your to-do list, checking your email, like fully present. This is the gift of unschooling. If you can be fully present in your child's life and actually hear them, and even go beyond that to see them, to see what they care about, because we have this problem in the world today that we inadvertently, we don't mean to, but we get so caught up in our own suffering. How our parents did blank and blank to us instead of letting that go. Forgive your parents. They did the best they could. Do your best to just show up and listen to your child. Our world would look so different if kids were just listened to.
For watching this video. If you have any other questions about unschooling, we'd love if you could let us know in the comments down below. There are so many questions about unschooling because it's such a huge topic, especially when it comes to unschooling teenagers, how to transition into actual job skill sets. There are so many questions that we would love to answer, so just let us know what questions you have down in the comments below, and we'd love to make another video about it.
Also, if you're looking for how to take the next step, we have a ton of resources that are linked below too that can help you. The first one is Gabby has an amazing course called Young Entrepreneurs that teaches not only just the basics of like how to start a business and turn your passion into a profitable business model, but also to help your teen uncover like who they are and what is so important to them, what they're excited about, what they're passionate about. It's like the ultimate journey in mindfulness combined with the journey towards making money so that they can be a successful adult one day. Second, sometimes it's hard. You probably got the idea from this video that like unschooling is more than just making our kids successful. It's about nurturing the self. And for a lot of us moms, parents, we didn't get that nurturing that we needed to be able to think this in this way. So one thing you can do is set up a free consult with me below where I can help you uncover what it is, what program it is that you're running that's creating these mindset blocks, and really help you overcome the fears, because it's really the inner dialogue that's happening inside you that is getting in the way of stepping into this. Otherwise, I think everybody in the world would just step into unschooling because it just brings so much joy to the family life. Why would you not?
So if you like this video, please be sure to share it so we can spread this message. If you loved this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel because we share tons of videos all about unschooling and adventuring and traveling full time.